Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Once again, we are delighted that you have joined us here at the First Baptist Church of Merrifield, and we are excited once again to deliver this sermon series entitled Living a Life of Victory. Living a Life of Victory. That's our sermon series. But I want you to turn with me to the Gospel according to St. John, chapter 16. St. John, chapter 16, verse 33. And I will be reading from the Amplified Version, which is very powerful concerning this particular text. John 16:33 from the Amplified Version. It reads as thus: I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace. In the world you have tribulation and distress and suffering. But be courageous, be confident, be undaunted, be filled with joy. I have overcome the world. My conquest is accomplished, my victory abiding. My brothers and sisters, out of this particular verse this morning, I want to tag this text, bad news, good news. Bad news, good news. My brothers and sisters, we live in the world inundated with bad news. Every time we turn on the television to watch the news, we are immediately bombarded with bad news. The other day, I was watching the news with my radical in-training theologian son, Justin, and we systematically heard one tragic story after another. And he turned to me and said, Dad, is there any good news? This world is going crazy. And I agree with him. See, let's be for real, bad news is all around us. Experiencing a global pandemic with no relief in sight, bad news. Enduring COVID-19 that literally altered our sense of normalcy and turned our world upside down, bad news. Thousands of people facing possible evictions, bad news. Thousands of people are suffering in this particular season, bad news. Thousands of people are dying daily with this infected virus, bad news. Families are burying family members 2, 3, 4 at a time, bad news. Mothers and fathers are losing a child who was denied the right to live before their prime, bad news. Healthcare workers are dying trying to save others, bad news. Families are struggling just to put food on the table, bad news. Racial tension is escalating across the landscape of America, bad news. Protesters are being killed for standing up for social justice, bad news. We have immature political leaders making mature decisions, bad news. African Americans are being harassed and sometimes killed for barbecuing while black, driving while black, working while black, bird watching while black, shopping while black, walking while black, swimming while black, and the list goes on. What I'm trying to tell you is all of this is bad news. The bad news is this: we will encounter all types of trouble, calamity, peril, challenges, adversities, and disasters in life. Life is difficult. Loved ones will die. We will experience sickness and disease. We will struggle to pay our bills. We will lose our jobs. We will worry about the future, and we will cry tears of turmoil. My brothers and sisters, suffering is real. If we are honest with ourselves, the troubles of life are unavoidable and unpreventable. But in this text of John, Jesus is spending his last final hours with his disciples. His disciples are going through something heavy. Jesus is preparing them for his departure to glory to sit at the right hand of his Father. Jesus is embarking upon his crucifixion, and the disciples are trying to wrap their minds around this reality. Jesus reassures them with words of comfort as they wrestle with difficulty, doubt, dilemmas, and the evaluation of their faith. Between Jesus' impending death and resurrection, the disciples will experience the darkness of Jesus' crucifixion on Passover Friday and the emptiness, the void of his absence on Saturday. They will weep and mourn with anguish and with deep emotional pain. Jesus never promised life would be easy, tiptoeing through the beautiful rose-fragrant gardens. No, but contrary to popular opinion, he never promised he would put more on us than we could bear. In fact, he affirmed to us that we will face persecution and difficulty for our faith. We all have seasons of tribulation. But the joy is knowing that he offers peace in the midst of a raging and chaotic storm. He may not remove the storm, but he has the ability to give us peace and hope in the storm. But in verse 33, Jesus is not misleading his disciples. He is honest and forthright about what they will soon encounter. He doesn't speak of a mere possibility, but of a certain reality. They will have tribulation. The word tribulation, this word tribulation, reveals the intensity of what they would endure. It speaks of heavy pressure and a heavy burden. He wanted them to prepare for what lies ahead and realize they could endure and overcome all odds. Jesus wanted his disciples to know that what they were going to experience, it wasn't going to be permanent. The pain would not last forever. As the saints of old used to say, this too shall pass. But the good news is this: we have hope in the face of trouble and adversity. In the words of author and late theologian G.K. Chesterton, he said this. He said, quote, Jesus promised the disciples three things. Watch this. That they would be completely fearless, absurdly happy, and in constant trouble. See, this brings me to emphasize the following. I see three assertions, I see three declarations in verse 33. First of all, I see a problematic promise, a peculiar plea, and a powerful partner. Let's look at it. I see a problematic promise. The problematic promise was this: in this world, you will have tribulations. See, it's a promise that no one wants to face. Let's be honest. It would be reassuring to hear Jesus say otherwise, such as, you might have trouble. You could have trouble. There is a slight possibility that trouble may appear. Trouble won't be experienced by everyone, but just a few. Or trouble may be avoidable. Unfortunately, Jesus said you will have trouble. That's a promise with a problem. See, trouble is unavoidable and certain. He didn't say could, might, or maybe, but he said will. See, the word tribulation originates from the Greek word thalipsis, which means to press together, to squash. It means to squeeze or to compress. Figuratively, thalipsis pictures one being crushed by intense pressure, difficult circumstances, suffering with emotional stress that weighs down the spirit. Life has a way of squeezing us, choking us, crushing us with the attempt to take us out. Tribulations place pressure on us to squash us and to destroy us. Not only do I see a problematic promise, but I see a second thing. I also see a peculiar plea. See, the peculiar plea was this. Here it is. But be of good cheer. See, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I hear you, Pastor. How can I be of good cheer in the middle of tribulation? The trials and tribulations that we go through never catches God by surprise. He is totally aware of our struggles. He is totally aware of all that we go through. And watch this. And while we go through what we go through, he is watching us the whole time. And any time that we find ourselves falling, he has a way to come to our rescue and pick us up. Now, allow me, if you will, to paint this picture of a loving father. Let me share this with you. This happened many years ago. My son Justin was about 2 years of age, and he just started to walk. And we bought this house, and in this house that we were looking at, it had a flight of stairs. And so one Sunday after church, we decided to visit the house that we were going to purchase. And we walked upstairs, we held Justin in our arms, and we walked up the stairs to the second floor. Now, mind you, this was at least 20 stairs. And we were walking around the bedrooms, and we got a little careless. And at one point, I put Justin down, and we got a little careless. My wife and I, we were going to room, and not realizing that we did not have Justin in our arms. Just so happened, I turned around, and Justin was on the top of the stairway. And before I could reach him, Lord behold, he came tumbling down 20 flights of stairs. And immediately I yelled, and I ran to his rescue. As he hit the bottom of the stair, I immediately, like a loving father did, I immediately scooped him up to make sure there were no broken bones. But the good news is this, that gave us a sense of peace, that Justin never cried. He never missed a beat. So that's how life is. Sometimes when we find ourselves falling, we have a loving Father that knows how to scoop us up in the nick of time. He says, be of good cheer, because everything will be all right. Let me show you in Matthew 9:2, Jesus told the sick man, be of good cheer. In Matthew 9:22, Jesus told the woman with the issue of blood, be of good cheer. In Mark 6:50, Jesus told the fearful disciples on the raging sea, be of good cheer. In Mark 10:49, Jesus told the blind man, be of good cheer. But here we are in 2020, in the midst of a global pandemic, in the midst of racial tension, in the midst of an economic collapse, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of fear, in the midst of the most important presidential election of our lifetime. And Jesus is telling all of us, be of good cheer. But not only that, my brothers and sisters, not only do I see a problematic promise, not only do I see a peculiar plea, but lastly, I see a powerful partner. Here it is, verse 33 in the C clause. It reads, I have overcome the world. Well, we heard the bad news intertwined with the problematic promise and the peculiar plea. But thank God for the good news. Here's the good news amid bad news. God has not abandoned us. God has not dissed us, gave up on us, or left us high and dry. He is our powerful partner. I hear you, preacher. Where do you see him as a powerful partner in the text? Well, the answer is found in the preceding verse, in verse 32. Verse 32 says, behold, the hour cometh, yea, is now come, that you may be scattered. You shall be scattered, every man to his own, and shall leave me alone. And yet I am not alone. Because, here it is, because the Father is with me. But in our tribulations, we are not alone, because he is with us. In our pain, we are not alone, because he is with us. In our struggles, we are not alone, because we have a God who is with us. But in our fears, we are not alone. In our storms, we are not alone. We have a powerful partner who goes before us and with us. We can face our tribulations with tremendous faith and courage. We don't have to worry in times of financial fears. We don't have to worry about worldly worries, health hardships, painful persecutions, and troubling times, because we have a powerful partner who has overcome the world. But my brothers and sisters, we don't need to fear. We don't need to doubt, and we don't need to fret. Why? Because Jesus overcame the world. But the bad news is this: they beat my Jesus with whips and fists. The bad news was this: they mocked him and ridiculed him. But the bad news is this: they placed a crown of thorns on his head. The bad news was they nailed his hands and nailed his feet on an old rugged cross. But the good news is they crucified my Jesus. The bad news, they laid him on the cross. But the good news is early one Sunday morning he got up with all power in his hands. But I come to tell somebody this morning, let me share some good news with you. I know you feel like you want to give up. I know you want to throw in the towel. But I got some good news for you. But yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff they comfort me. I got some good news to tell you. The Lord is my life and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. And whom should I be afraid? I got some good news for you. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. There shall be no evil to befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh in thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee in all thy ways. I got one more thing I gotta tell you. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee. And through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. Good evening, y'all. May the Lord bless you real good. But I come to tell somebody, hold on, because after a while, God will. I'm done. My brothers and sisters, don't let bad news outweigh the good news. I know it gets rough sometimes. I know you want to just pull your hair out and just say, I'm done, I'm checking out. But let me tell you something. He overcame the world. You have victory. Remember, you have victory. But let's be for real. I want you to be saved. Perhaps you don't have a relationship with Christ. So we encourage you to write us. 8122 Ransell Road, Falls Church, Virginia, 22042. Give us a call. We want you to have a relationship. I want you to know that you have victory. Yes, there is bad news, but thank God we have good news. And I refuse to allow the bad news outweigh the good news. If I was a singer, I would sing Paul Jones. I won't complain. But because I don't sing, I want you to know I'm not complaining. And I don't want you to complain. Hang on in there. And let God do what God needs to do. God bless you, my brothers and sisters. We love you. Remember, you have victory. God bless you.